introduction also, so that we have this session recorded. Okay. All right. So now about MSLC, this is so I'm the co-founder and CEO of MS Learning and Consulting Private Limited, it's known as MSLC. We are mainly into trainings, consulting, and staff augmentation. We do trainings, online trainings, as well as corporate trainings, and we are into consulting of Java application development as well as Liferay. And we do have skill resources for staff augmentation. And before I start, a brief about me. I am Parvez Misarwala. I have 14 years of industry experience, and now I have Jira experience of past 4 years. I provide Jira training and as well as client support as well as far as customization and configuration is concerned. All right, and before we start, just one last thing. I wanted to update you on the upcoming webinars. So we will have other two webinars coming up, and the first one is on 9th of June, that is Tuesday, and this will be a webinar on Liferay, migrating Liferay 6.1 to 6.2. And the second webinar I'll be doing is 11th of June, that is on Thursday, and this webinar will be on Jira time tracking. And I'll be sending out the invites for this soon after this uh, session. All right, so let's get started now. All right. So as I said, the purpose of our session is to really, create, design a workflow, know about what is the workflow, and creating it. We'll start with a simple concept of design and implement. Okay. Now, typically, when you start creating a workflow, you immediately get on the tool and start identifying the statuses and start creating a workflow. That's not a good practice. The good practice is to really spend enough time on designing it. I mean, take your pen and paper, get on a conference call, get in a room with a team, and try to find out what are the what should be the workflow look like, and what are the various parameters that needs to be included in the workflow. So in general, 80% of your time if spent on designing, your 20% of time will be on implementation, and will give you a mm, an awesome workflow which will cater to all the needs of your organization. Now Jira has a capability of creating number of workflows. You can assign one workflow to one project, and you can assign different workflows for each issue type. For example, for a particular project, you may have one particular workflow for defects. You may have another workflow for features. So this all is possible with Jira. All right. I hope you can see my screen. So when you create a workflow, you need to understand two things. One is a status, another is the transition. Status are nothing but the steps through which your issue will go through. It could be new, open, in progress, fixed, closed, acceptance testing, reopened. All these are statuses. They are typically nouns. And transitions is kind of an action that you need to perform to go from one status to another status. For example, if you are in a status called open and you want to go to status called in progress, that the transition would say that start development. So that start development is an action, and it's written as an action that you do something so that you go to the next status. So remember, we will be playing through, we will be talking about only status and transition across the workflow while we are creating it. So this screen capture is just to give you an idea of how this workflow would look like when we create it in Jira. If you, as you see here, there is a step name, there's a linked status, and there's a transition ID. So you have a linked status that is a source status, and a transition ID that is send to triage. It's again an action, so send to triage, right? Send for triage. And the status that you have is the destination status that you have is triage. Right? So your workflow consists of the source status, the transitions, and the destination status. And it provides operations like add a transition, you can delete a transition, you can edit an existing transition, and you can view properties. If you look at a diagrammatical if you look at a diagram, the workflow would look something like this, where there's a starting point, you get a new status, you go to triage, from triage it goes to open, from open it goes back to in progress, and from there to fixed, and then UAT, that's user acceptance testing, and then closed. So now let's okay, now we are creating a client defect workflow. Let's start creating a workflow now. Okay. Now imagine that we all are sitting in a room and debating and brainstorming that how to brainstorming on what are the statuses and what should be the transition for a client defect workflow. So we are brainstorming on creating the client defect workflow. Client defect workflow, I've given this name because this we want this to be applicable only for the defects and that are reproduced, that are registered by the client. So let's start debating it. Right now, the first thing that we would, let's say, do is, we would divide our groups into three. That there's something called client who actually reports an issue. There's something called QA who does something for those issues, and then something called development who actually fixes the issue. So I've divided these three things, and I'll try to see how my how my workflow fits into these three entities. Okay. So let's say when a client reports an issue, I want this status to be new. So as soon as the client reports an issue, creates an issue in Jira, the status should be new. Okay. From that, client would actually push it to the QA for further action, and that action is send it to triage. For those who, I'm sure all of them, you in the IT industry know the meaning of triage. A triage is nothing but analyzing the issue, ensuring that this issue is really recreated. It's not just a user error or a documentation issue, but really needs development. So the outcome of the triage is to identify what's the criticality of the issue and whether it requires development or not. So I'll add another status called triage, which typically QA will own it, and then from triage, once the issue is finalized, it will go to open status. So the transition is sent to dev. So here what happens? QA has triaged the issue, and they feel that the issue is recreated. Yes, it will require development, and it will go to open status. So that's sent to dev. Now this is in the development queue, it's in the open status, but it's assigned to some of the developer, and developer starts developing it. So developer actually starts working on this. So then the next status that it goes to is in progress. That's something that I want, that whenever a developer starts working on an issue, I should know that that which are the issues that are in progress. From in progress, suppose the issue is resolved, I mean developer has developed it and the issue is resolved, it goes to a fixed status. Okay, once this is fixed, QA has verified it and QA finds it okay, it will be sent to UAT to client. UAT is nothing but user acceptance testing. Okay, once the client confirms that yes, the issue is resolved, okay, it needs to be closed. So this is a very simple workflow that I've created, which takes the issue from client, analyzes it, develops it, fixes it, and then after client confirmation is closed. So let's start developing this in Jira. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go to Jira. This is my Jira. Now, one one important thing, in order to get to Jira workflow, you need to be a Jira administrator. Only then you will get this wheel button, and you will be able to see this Jira administration section. So let me get into this. I'll go to issues. Okay, and I'm going to go to workflows. Currently, there are no active workflows, and active workflows are the workflows that are assigned to a project, and all other workflows which are not assigned to any project will be the inactive workflows. So let me start with creating a workflow. In order to create a workflow, I need to click to add button. So I'll do that, and let's say webinar demo workflow, or I can give a very meaningful name saying the client defect workflow. Description is optional. I click on add. So this is where the I can design my workflow. Now before that, if you remember, I talked about statuses and transitions. So I need to ensure that I have all the statuses that I need for this particular workflow. So for that, on the left hand panel there is a section called status. I'll go there quickly and check if I have the statuses. So one of my status was new, which I don't find it here. So I'll click on add and say a new is a status. Description is optional. Okay. Then another status that I had in my workflow is triage. That also I don't find it. So I'll click on add status and say triage. One more status, I think open I have. Open is here, in progress is here, fixed is something that I want. So there is a resolved status, but what my workflow talks about only fixed status. So I'll name it as fixed and add a new status. And then I have UAT. So that's another status that I will add, UAT. Okay. And I have the close status. So now I have all the statuses available that are in my workflow, and I'll be able to use them in while creating a workflow. So I'll go back to the workflow. I click on add workflow in order to add a workflow, but we have already done that. So I'm sure it would be there in the inactive section. You can see here client defect workflow. I will edit it. Now I can add the steps that are that we had defined. Okay. my initial step was new, so I will say I'll first change this, edit, and the step name is new, and the link status, all the step while creating a workflow are linked to a status. So here I'll say new and update. This is what my initial status looks like when I start the when an issue is created. There's another step from new to triage. Okay, so I'll say the step name is triage, and linked status is again triage. Okay, then next step I have from triage is open, and the link status is open. So I'll add all those steps first and then transitions. Then I'll say in progress, and I'm keeping the same name. Typically step and status you keep the same name. Then you have fixed, and the step name is, the link status is fixed. You have UAT, link status is UAT, and closed, and link status is closed. All right, so I think I have all the statuses that I needed: new, triage, open, in progress, fixed, UAT, and close. Now these, now still our workflow is not defined. I mean, I have just noted the status here. If I want to define a workflow, I need to have a transition and a destination workflow. So from new, I have the status new, but where do I go from new? What is my transition? So I need to add that transition first. So let me add from new. As we know, when we define the status, when we define the workflow, it was from new I'll go to triage. So I'll click on this add transition. Okay, and now see here, the transition name has to be an action. That means send to triage. Description is optional, and the destination step I have to say. So when I click on this transition, what will be my destination step? Destination step is triage. So as you can see here, this new is my linked source status, send to triage is my transition, and that will take me to triage status. From triage, I want to add another transition that send to development, send to dev, and the status will be open. So when I click on this transition, it will be the issue will go to open status. And let me add other. So from open, start development is my transition name, and in progress will be the status. From in progress, it was resolve issue, and the destination step was fixed. From fixed, it was to go to UAT. So send for UAT, and the destination step is UAT. And from UAT, it will go to close status. So issue closed, close issue. Say closed. All right. So this is how my workflow looks like. So my a very simple workflow is ready. If you see here, my source status is new, it goes to triage. From triage it goes to open. From open it goes to in progress. From in progress it goes to fix. From fix it goes to UAT, and from UAT it goes to close. And from close there is no transition, because once it is closed it's all done. All right, so now let me quickly show you how this will reflect when you create an issue. So for that I will have to assign it to a scheme or create a new scheme. So I'll go to workflow scheme. I don't see any active scheme here. Let me create a project first very quickly. So I'll go to project and add a project. I'll say software development project, demo project, DP. All right, so now when I've created a project, and I'll be able to assign my scheme to this project. So I'm sure in the workflows there is a default scheme that's available for a demo project, and what I'll do is this is for all unassigned issue types. That means for all the issue types, this default workflow will take place. But I want a different workflow for defect. So let me edit it, and I'll say add a workflow, add existing workflow. You see here we have this client defect workflow, and I will say next, and I have to select the issue type, because Jira allows me to associate each workflow with each issue type. So for every issue type you can have a different workflow. So this workflow that I've created is for bug. I'll finish. So done. So this is done, and I will be able to publish it because it's already existing. It saves a draft and asks me to publish. Okay, cool. So now my workflow is ready, and it is associated with the project. So now when I create an issue with that project, you should be able to see that workflow. So let me do that. Let me create an issue. I'll create an issue with the project demo project, and issue type is bug, because that's where we have created the workflow for. I'll click on next. Okay, here I'll say testing the workflow for client defects. Rest of the things I'll keep as it is and just assign to me. So that is assigned to me, and then say create. Okay, as you can see here, the status is new because that was the first default status that we had, and the only transition that we have right now is send to triage. So that means as a client I've created an issue and I want to send it to triage. So now I'll click on triage. You see the status changes to triage. And another transition that I have, so it's actually with QA team, let's say, and the status is triage, and they want to send it to development. So there's a send to dev. The moment I do send to dev, the status goes to open. And now from open again, a transition is start development. That means from a development team takes it to into their task list, and they actually start working on it. So when they start working on it, they'll say start development. And once you start development, the issue becomes in progress. Okay. And then there is another status called resolve issue. So as a developer, I've started working on it, I've resolved it, so I'll click on resolve issue. Now once I resolve issue, the issue goes to fixed status. From fixed, I'll say send to UAT, so it goes to client, and it becomes the status becomes UAT. And you might have noticed I have not changed any of the assignee here, but in practice you will actually change the assignee and give it to a particular person who will be working on it. But just for demo purpose, I am just showing you how your workflow will reflect in an issue. Now once that is done, once the issue is confirmed, you will say close issue, and the moment you close the issue, it goes to the close status. Okay, I hope this was clear enough. And if you have any questions, you can just write the questions in your webinar panel, and I'll be able to take it up at the end of this session. All right. So now this was a simple workflow that we did. I'll add some spice to it. We will add some conditions and some other workflows, because in real life, I'm sure you will not have this simple workflow at all. Right? And I've seen much more complex workflows than what actually I'm going to demo in this session. So I'll go back to my presentation here, and we saw this workflow that we created, and we created it in Jira. Okay, now there are some more aspects to it that we will discuss. Okay, so one is, let's say from new to triage. It goes to triage, but then QA team finds that you need more information from the client. I mean, there isn't enough information, and that usually happens. So you want to send it back to the client. Now you don't want to send it back to new, but you want to track it as a new status. So you will add one more status, let's say pending client info. Okay, so from triage we need a transition that will take you to the pending client info, and the transition can be called need more info. Okay? And once client provides the information, the issue can go back to send to triage. Right? So this is one more status and transition that we will add. Another transition that we can add is from open, when the issue is in development status, and development is try to analyze it. They find that they need QA team to triage it again, maybe in terms of checking few more scenarios, or in terms of rebuilding the data, whatever. But they wanted the QA team to triage it again. We can always send it back to send to triage. So this is another status that we want. And another one, I think most of you in the IT industry would know that once you fix the issue, QA team finds that the issue is not working. So we need something called reopened. Okay. So then the transition from fixed to reopened is the reopen transition, and from reopen you go to start development, where developer actually starts working on. So this is another workflow that we will immediately look into Jira. I'll go back to my tool, go back to issues, and in the administration section, I'll go to the workflow. Now, before I do that, let me see, because I have some new statuses that I've added. So let me see if I have those statuses here. I click on statuses. One status that was there is pending client info, which I don't have it here. So I'll click on this and say pending client info is a status. There's another status called reopened, which I see it's here. So reopened is available. So these are the two statuses I think that we have added. So we have now all the statuses. I'll go back to the workflow. I select my workflow. It's in the active section. Now remember, friends, if the issue is in active section, you can still edit it. But the moment you edit it, the Jira will create a draft of it. So your original workflow, where people are still working on that live environment, is not hampered. So let me show you how that happens. I'll click on this edit button. And you see here you are editing a draft workflow, so you are not editing a live workflow now. Okay. So my the status that I wanted to add, transition that I wanted to add, is from triage. Currently it goes to send to dev. It should also be able to go to pending client info. Okay. So before that I need to add the steps here, and I'll add it pending client info, and reopened is another step that I need to add here. Now from triage I'll say add one more transition. I'll say need more info, and the destination steps will be pending client info. Okay. So you see here from triage it goes to send to dev. It can also go to need more info with a status pending client info. Now from pending client info it will go back to send to triage, so I'll add this transition in the pending client info as a source step. I'll add transition and say go back, send back to triage. I can write it according to my own requirement, and the destination step would be triage. All right, so this is what we have done with with our first requirement. My another requirement was from open, it goes to start development. It actually should also go to triage, so I'll say add transition, and again I'll let send back to triage, and status is triage. All right, now we have to see, so this is also implemented. The another one was from fixed. I want to yeah, once it is fixed, it will go to the reopen status. So from fixed it goes to UAT. It should also go to the reopen status, so I'll add a transition here and say reopen issue, and the status would be reopened. And from reopened it will go to start development, so I'll add a transition here, start development, and say in progress. Okay, so this is how you go on adding your source and destination, and create a workflow. Okay. Now one thing that you have noticed here is that while adding a transition there was something called transition view. So let me show you what it is. Let's say from in progress I go to resolve the issue, so click on this transition and I'll edit this transition. Transition view is nothing but when you go from one status to another status through a transition, it will give you the it will allow you to either select a screen with some particular fields. So I'll say resolve the issue screen is come up will come up when we do that. Click on update. Cool. Now we are done with this, and I'll actually go back to here and check. Yes, I think everything that I wanted is done, and I'll need to publish it in order to, because currently it's a draft. So when I publish it will it will be implemented on the project. So I'll click on publish draft. It allows me to take a backup. I'll say yes, it's a good practice to take a backup. I'll take a backup and publish. Cool, so this is done. Now when I create an issue I will see two options. From triage I'll see send to dev and need more info, and I'll also see something called reopened, and as well as I'll see from resolved, the issue that is fixed, I'll see a screen. So let me quickly show you that. Create an issue, a demo project, and a bug, defect test, defect workflow. Rest of all the things I will keep it as it is. Okay, so you see now the status is new, and the destination status, the transition is sent to triage. So let me first do that. I'll click on send to triage, and the status goes to triage. And you see there are two transitions now. I can send it to dev, I can send it to back to triage, back to client, we're saying need more info. So when I click on need more info, it takes to the pending client info. Okay, so this helps me to understand how many issues are pending with client to provide the information. I can take out a report and publish it that these are the issues that are pending for you to provide the information. Okay. And now client can look at it and provide the information and click on send back to triage. Once I do that, it again comes back to triage status, so my flow is working. Now I'll go to send to dev, and the issue changes to open. Here also you can see I can go forward to start development, or I can send it back to triage again. I'll click on send back to triage. It again comes to triage status, and then I can again go to send to dev. Okay, I'll start the development. The status comes to in progress. Now we have to see if that screen, the resolve issue screen that we have talked about, comes up while we resolve the issue. So I'll click on this resolve issue screen. Yes, so see the issue, the screen comes up here. I can put the comments, issue is whatever, issue is resolved. And friends, you can actually design your own screen that you want with the required fields and populate it while the transition is there. So resolve issue. Okay, now you can see the issue is resolved, it's fixed. So it's with a developer who sorry, it's with a QA team, and the QA team is testing it. And you can see here, if it works well, it will be sent to UAT. If it doesn't work, it will be sent to reopen. So I say the issue is not yet working, I'll click on reopen. So when it's so now the issue is reopened, and a developer looks at it. Okay, yeah, yes, this is valid. I mean, it's not fixed properly. So now I'm starting working on it as a developer, and click on start development in progress. I'll resolve the issue. Again, that screen comes up. I'll put some comments and resolve the issue. Now again, the QA team test is verifies it and says send for UAT. Okay, and close. So once that UAT is confirmed, you can close the issue. All right, friends, so this is how we can create a workflow, simple, complex, all the workflows we can create. We can associate a workflow to one particular issue type, and also to different workflows for different projects. Okay. Now one more thing that I want to touch upon in today's session is the post functions, the conditions, the validations, and the properties. Now your Jira workflow, in order to make it more flexible and more meaningful, and actually more stable, it allows you to add some post functions. Now what are these post functions? Post functions are nothing but the actions that will be taken once the transition is done. Okay. And I've defined these three actions here. For new from so first action, post action that I want to define is from new to triage. So once I go from new status to triage status, the issue should be automatically assigned to QA user. I've created a user named QA user for demo purpose, so the issue should be assigned to a QA user. Okay, from send to dev assigns automatically to dev user. Means from triage, if I go to open status, that is send to dev transition, it will automatically assign to so once I do that, the post function will be that the issue will be assigned to dev user. Okay, and after closing, assign to reporter. So these are the three post functions that I want to implement. So let me go back and implement these post functions. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna explain you this post function, condition, validation, and properties, implement this, and then we will check how that is reflected. So as I said, post function is something, a step, a function that will execute it once the transition is happened. So go to here and again open my workflow, edit workflow. Okay, my first post function was from new to triage, it should be assigned to QA user. So from new to triage, so this is my transition, send to triage. And post function, so here you can see condition, validation, post function, and triggers will not cover because in this session, because this is more of stash and integration with the source control. So in post function I have a link called add post function. Okay, here you can see that now what I want. So from new triage it should be assigned to QA user, so I can use this update issue field and click on add. And which field will be updated? Assignee field will be updated, and to a field value would be QA user. Okay, maybe this is a QA lead in your company, in your project, who actually takes all the issues and then assigns to assigns to the particular QA member. So if you want to put that, you can do that. So it's QA user, click on add. So this post function is added, the assignee of the issue will be set to QA user. Okay, another post function that I want to add is send to dev assigns automatically to dev user. So I'll go back to my workflow, and send to dev is now from triage to send to dev. Click on this. So once I have this send to dev executed, it should be, the issue should be assigned to dev user. And this is a post function, add a post function here, and again the same, update issue, add you, and assignee will be dev user. Another is after closing the assign to a reporter. So I'll go back to my workflow. This is done. So assignee of the issue to be set to dev user when you go from triage to open. So when the send to dev is executed, this will be the post function that will execute. Okay, now from UAT to closed, from closed, and add a post function here. Okay, and there's an option called assign to reporter. So once the issue is closed, the issue is assigned back to a reporter, so that the reporter knows that yes, these are the issues that are closed. Okay, so this is what I've done as a post function. Now let's see at the condition. Condition is nothing but a condition where if that condition is not met, the transition will not happen. So if that condition is false, you will not see the transition button enabled. Okay, so let me put that conditions here on new to triage. What I'm saying is from new to triage transition, the only reporter should be able to execute. So for example, new send to triage. This is one where nobody else but someone who has actually created an issue will be able to execute. So I'll go to conditions. I see that there are no conditions here. Add condition. And there is an option called only reporter condition to allow only the reporter to execute the transition. Click on this and add. Another condition is close transition. Only QA group should be able to close the issue. I mean, I don't want everyone else to close the issue, but only the person who is in the QA group, a testing group, should be able to close the issue. This QA group can be created as a group in Jira, and you can assign members, Jira users, to that QA group, so that any user who is part of that QA group will get this option of closing the issue. So let me do that also. So from UAT to close issue, click on close issue transition, and here condition I will add that only if the user is in a group called QA group, Let me see. Yeah, user is in group condition to allow that if it is in a particular group, you'll be able to change the transition. So I'll select a group here. I've created a QA group and I click on add, and I've assigned some members to the QA group. So only those members will be able to. Okay, now validation is something that when a transition happens, the user, the system validates that a particular permission is there or not. If it is not there, then it will give you an error message. So one validation that I'll put is validate if the user has a close issue permission on the close transition. So here I close transition, I'll put a validation and say add a validator, where you need to see that if it permission validator, click on add, and here you say close issue. So only if a user has a close issue permission, uh, it will allow to close the issue. There's another thing that is very important is properties. Jira has the some of the properties that you can set. So now what if after it is closed, the issue is closed, I don't want the issue to be editable. Okay, so what I'll do is i'll I'll actually mention the property and make it non-editable. So for that, I'll go back to Jira workflow and I'll click on this closed status. There's something called view properties. You can see there is no currently defined properties. There's a property called jira.issue.editable, and if you make it false, that means, and click on add, so that means when the your issue is on this particular status, this property will execute and it will not allow you to edit further. Cool. So now I'm done with all the conditions also, work post functions also, and the properties. As you can see, I'm still in the draft section, and I'll now publish it. Okay, let me take another copy of it. So this is published. Okay. Now typically in real life you will not keep on editing your active workflows. That's not a good practice, and that's the reason I stressed upon the designing aspect of the workflow. So you need to be careful that you design it in such a way that you have all the transitions laid out, all the post functions and conditions defined and documented, and then you create a workflow so that you have all the scenarios already covered while the design, and your workflow is perfect. Okay, so now my conditions are all laid down, so I'll click on this. Currently I am logged in as admin user, so we will now log in log out with different users to see how our conditions work. Okay, so we'll see first how our post functions work here. Okay, I create an issue, a demo project and a bug, and say test conditions, validations, and post function. This is my and rest of the things I will keep as it is. Click on create. Okay, you can see my status is new as usual, and another is sent to triage. The issue is unassigned. Now see the post function from new to triage. If I go, it will be automatically assigned to QA user. So let me try that. So when I see send to triage, the status goes to triage. Okay, and you see here the assignee becomes QA user, so my this post function is working. Okay, second is now when I go from send to dev, assigns to dev user. So when triage is done and the issue is sent to development, click on this. Okay, you see here it automatically changes, so your post function is working when you actually execute a transition. All right. Another condition is on new to triage only reporter should be able to execute. So actually I was a reporter, so I was able to execute. Other people will not be able to execute. Okay, and then we will see now what happens with the close transition. Okay, so let me go ahead and start development and resolve the issue. So currently, who is doing it? Admin Pervez is doing it. So I'll click on resolve. Okay, and I'll send to this also. I can do now. See, I want to close the issue. It's in the UAT. I want to close the issue, but the condition that we have put is only the user in QA group should be able to close the issue. Okay, so currently I am logged in as an admin, so I will not be able to close the issue. So I'll have to log out and log in as a QA user. So there's a user called QA user that I've created, and I'll see which is the issue that I had created. So search for the issue. Okay, it was, I think, this one. Let me open it. Okay, now I'm logged in as a QA user, so it allows me to see the close issue button. So because I'm a part of QA user, I'm logged in, and I'll see this close. Even a dev user will not be able to see. So let me check this. I'll log out, and as a dev user I will log in. I have another user just as a dummy named dev user, and test. You see here, now I am as a I've logged in as a dev user, but it doesn't show me the close status. Okay, so let me go back to the QA user. So my condition that in close transition only user in QA group should be able to close the issue, this is working. Okay, and it also validates that it has a close issue permission. So my user has a close issue permission. Let me log out, log in with a QA user, QA user test. Okay. It is dp3. I can search it here. Okay, now I close it. So I'll close the issue. Now once see the status is closed, there is another property that I have written. Once issue is closed, it should not be editable. So you can see that there is no edit button here. Okay, so once this issue is closed, nobody can make any changes whatsoever, any changes here. I can cool. So that's all about the workflow. I am now I think we are done with what we wanted to cover, so we will open for Q&A. Okay, I see that there are no questions that are written, so I hope it was all um, understood. If at all you have any questions, you can feel free to let me write it here. Okay, feel free to email me at parvez at mslc.in. Okay, there's one question. So there's a question called how do you write a post function to assign to certain user based on a custom field. Okay, I'm thinking if I get your question right, how do we write a post function to assign to certain user based on a custom field? Okay, can I, let me see if I can. Okay, you are using a function that assigned to a specific dev. Yes, yes, that's correct. So I was using a function that will be assigned to a specific and in dev. Okay, let me open that and see how do you set up that function. Okay, so let me go back and show you that. Okay, I'll log out and log in as an admin because that's where I have the admin rights. Okay, I've unmuted you, Paul. So I think you'll be able to talk just in case we want to discuss. And
Yes, hello. Yes, I was just curious, how do you implement that function that assigns to a specific developer?
yes,
Because I saw you using the function, but I would like to know a bit more how that works. Yeah.
sure. So let me go through the issue, the workflow, and edit this workflow that we had, client effect workflow. Okay, so from let's say from triage to send to dev, I want to assign when an issue goes from triage to send to development, it should be assigned to a particular user. I'll click on this post function, okay, and it says assignee a user. So let me delete it and I'll add it again. I'll add a post function and it has various options here. It will say assign to current user. Okay, it will say assign to a lead developer. Okay, so what this would do is, if your issue is with, uh, whatever whoever is the project lead or a component lead, it will be assigned to. If there is no component lead, it will be assigned to the project lead. Or if at all there is a component lead, then the issue will be automatically assigned to a component lead. Okay, it can be assigned to a reporter also, right? And then there is something called update and issue field. I mean, this is
What is the Jira project called? What? What is the Jira project called? Access? I don't know. It's too fancy for me.
okay. So this is update issue field. I mean, this also goes with if we want to update a particular field, for example, not just assignee field but any other field. So I'll click on add. Okay, and here it is assignee, so it allows me to assign it. But otherwise, if I select this issue field anything, okay, let's say I want to update the environment field or I want to update the description field, the field value will change, so a new value. So this is another function that I've created where it will change the field issue. So even if it is a custom field, that field will be available, and you can change the value of that field. Okay, so I'm unmuting you, Paul, so I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry. Yes, that was it. I thought you were doing something more complicated, but yeah, I got it. I got it.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, any other questions? All right, great. It seems that there are no further questions. So I will end the session now here. And thank you so much. Just one last thing. So let me mention it. You can write me an email on my on this email ID if you have any questions. Or my cell number is, you can call me anytime. And my Skype ID is parvez.misarwala. Okay, feel free to reach out to me if any of the questions or any assistance that you need when in terms of creating a workflow or any part of Jira. Thank you once again. Thank you so much. Thanks for spending your time and and joining this webinar. Thank you and see you. Hope to see you in our next webinar as well. Thank you. Bye bye.